So have you played any other sports growing up? Was it just hockey, or did you do other things? I mean,
No, I played cricket. I played football as well. Interestingly, I I was actually in growing up. I preferred football growing up, in all honesty. But maybe at age 15, 16, I realized that, hey, you're actually very good at this goalkeeping thing. You could actually go and play for a national team. And I think it was that age and I started saying, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to train more. I'm going to train outside the hours where the national team would train. So I think when I was 17, I would go to training 1.5 hours before. I'd run 30 minutes before and then go to training after. So I did those things to get to show people that I really wanted it.
What position did you play in football and cricket? You weren't the wicket keeper for your cricket team.
Interestingly, I was a very good wicket keeper in cricket, but interestingly, I didn't play a wicket keeper role. I was actually an outfield player, and I wasn't a bad batsman as well. And for football, I was actually a goalkeeper.
What are the similarities between? Well, what are the similarities between wicket keeping and goalkeeping? What are the similarities and the differences between different sports as a goalkeeper?
Okay. Well, starting with the similarities, the first one is you angles. Any goalkeeper, whichever, it doesn't matter if you're doing the NHL, if you're doing hockey, if you're doing football, knowing your angles and understanding your angles is going to be very important. That's one of the major similarities, because I guarantee you, if you're in a good position and you can cover your angles properly, you have a 75% chance of making that save. But if your angles are poor, either you being a very good goalkeeper or not, it becomes a little bit more difficult. So I think that's one of the major similarities. And also communication, communicating with your defenders, communicating and setting up your team in a position where it makes you more difficult to break down. In terms of now the differences, there are a lot of differences, because as you know, in football, there's offside and all of those things. So it makes it a little bit more easier for you to set up your defense. With hockey, it's a moving game and persons are constantly going in and out of the game at regular speed. Plus the ball is smaller. So you also have to understand that how you set up and how you manage your D area, that becomes something different of how you'd manage your area in a goalkeeper position in football.
How would you manage your penalty area and your defence in football differently to how you organise your defence in hockey?
Well, basically, when you're playing hockey, the key is when you constantly talk. So, for example, if you're seeing for your team, say in 3 versus 2 situations, and you already know your defenders, you know which area and what things might expose them. So you try to set them up in a position, you try to have the conversation early. Look, the ball is coming over the left-hand side continuously. We need to at least pull to the left and allow them to force back to the right-hand side, prevent them from coming down, doing something. So basically it's just seeing what's there. But then with football now, it's a little bit more, and I wouldn't say tactical. With football, it's a little bit more individual skill. You have to understand that once that ball comes over the half line, there's a possibility that you can take a shot from anywhere. So you're going to always have to be keen on where the defenders are, where the attackers are, and can this individual shoot from 35 yards, 22 yards, or whatever it is. It's a different when with hockey, in the 11 versus 11 game, they have to come into the D to score, or they're looking for a tap in. So it becomes different how you function with your team.
What about your individual technique? What about centre of gravity? As a football goalkeeper, is your centre of gravity the same as it is as a hockey goalkeeper?
Well, not necessarily. And the reason why your center of gravity is a little different is because when you're a goalkeeper in football, you really don't have on any equipment. You're basically your own self moving around. But when you're you have to understand you have on maybe 10, 15 pounds more than what you used to have. have on when you're playing football. So your center of gravity becomes important now in terms of how you move around and how you, in terms of how do you pick up the weak areas in your game to determine how you're going to basically move your effectiveness in moving between the areas, between the D points. And I tend to call them D points because I usually say the D is cut in four quarters, basically, which comes back to your own angles. So for me, it really, there's a big difference because one, you're carrying a load and one, you're not really carrying a load. So that's for me, what really makes a difference in both.
Does the size of the goal make a difference to your center of gravity? Does the predominance of hands and feet in one sport over the other have a difference to your center of gravity?
Yes, it does. And the reason why it does is because, as you rightly said, one has a larger goal than the other. So based on your center of gravity and how you position, and then you have to consider the ball movement is very different. In hockey, you'll find that the ball is smaller, and because the ball is smaller, it will actually zip a little bit quicker, and it doesn't swing as much as the variation of football. Now, I don't remember if you remember, there's a particular football built for the World Cup. I think 2008 or 9. I don't remember which year, but the Javelani ball that swung, and because it swung so much, you basically your positioning, your center of gravity had to change and adapt to it. In hockey, I've seen where persons have actually made the ball swing in the new forms of techniques, but it's still very different in how quickly it comes at you and how you're positioning and how you basically set up to prevent the shots. What I will say though is, in terms of your center of gravity and saving, if you're a hockey goalkeeper, it makes you, because you have different style of goalkeeping for footballers. You have those who are, you call your stop block, your shot stoppers, which basically they're not very good at holding onto the ball. They'll never hold it. They'll usually palm it away. If you're a very good hockey goalkeeper, it makes you an excellent stop blocker because you won't necessarily hold the ball. Everything that you come will basically palm it away because of how the padding for hockey is. So that it will definitely assist with that.
Because in hockey, it is illegal for the goalkeeper to trap the ball or
yeah.
Whereas in football, it's encouraged.
It's encouraged, yeah. Especially when the game is in a dying moment, you slow it down. You lie on the ground and you're tired and all these things. So yeah, there's a difference.
How important do you think the concept of a multi-sports training is for a goalkeeper? Do you think
it's important? Very important. And the reason, and here's the interesting thing, we had a coach many years ago that worked with the national team, Danny James, very, very big tactician in Jamaica in terms of hockey. What he would normally say to us, interestingly, is that you have to tie different sports together if you want to be a complete player, because the game of hockey doesn't just require you just running. It requires, and persons who live in the Caribbean or in England or any of the Commonwealth countries will understand this, the concept. If an individual is an excellent batsman, I guarantee you that you have an excellent straight drive in hitting the ball directly to the goal as a striker. But similarly, if you're an excellent wicket keeper in cricket, it translates over into hockey. And the training styles can be the same in terms of your warm-up, in terms of your level of movement, in terms of how you approach it in getting to the ball. Because I usually tell persons that I'm coaching that instead of you taking, if you're trying to go to your left, right, from a crouching position, you have to move your lead leg to whichever direction you want. And then you have to push yourself off, rather than you trying to push yourself off, so when you push your initial lead leg, it gets you a little closer to the ball. Versus if you just dive, you're still in the same position. You're just hoping that your angles are going to be perfect enough. So it makes the save a little bit more difficult.
So it's preparation, it's reading the game, it's anticipation.
It's everything. It's also a matter of a little bit of eavesdropping. So a lot of times you hear, sometimes persons don't realize, but when I was playing, I would normally listen to the coaches that is on the other side, because sometimes you can hear what they're saying and the instructions. So you have to be cognizant to the point where you know what's happening on the field, but I can also hear what's happening off the field. So and by listening to their instructions, I'm knowing, okay, this is what they're going to do. This is their intention. So then you help your defenders who really are possibly just thinking about the player and the ball in front of them. I'm thinking about everything, the entire game, from the bench to the point of getting on the field, to the point where we're exiting the field. I'm thinking about all of those things in one.
So it seems to me that you're saying a multi-sports background, playing a bit of football, a bit of cricket, a bit of hockey is good for a young goalkeeper.
It is very good for a young goalkeeper. And my reason for saying that is simply you get a different background from a variety of things. Now, if you're very athletic, for example, if you used to run, it helps you to move around in the pads a little bit better, because then you're a little bit more agile. Along with being a if you're a cricketer, in a sense, it also helps you to your hand-eye coordination in terms of how you see the ball and your movement. Likewise, if you're a football goalkeeper, it assists in terms of those situations. For example, when persons are doing drag flicks, the ball will curve and it will move. So your anticipation of how you move, your positioning, and how you basically envision what's going to happen improves all around if you're able to tie all of those different sports into one. So even when I was coaching the last set of CSC goalkeepers in Jamaica, we did a variety of background training in terms of using a football. We used the cricket ball to work in it, and to the point where I even went as far as using a tennis ball at times. So you have to incorporate those things in how you actually train, how you develop your coaches, how you develop your playing style as a goalkeeper.